Hi and welcome to Darvanalee Design Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and today we are here for hack number 4 on the accordion pouch series. So this time we're actually going to be making a flat bottom pouch, so you can see there that it sits nice and flat. It has also got a twist lock in it, so I'll show you how to install that. I'm also going to show you how to add an anchor point, so you can add a wristlet or even a shoulder strap. I'm going to show you how to make a credit card slots, and there'll be 12 credit card slots. I'm also going to show you in this video how to install a double zip pouch. And there's French seams on that, so it makes it nice and easy for you. We're also going to do a little bit of quilting to the outside of this pouch as well. And I'm also going to take you through step by step on how to make a wristlet and also a large shoulder strap. So let's get started. Okay, so I have covered enlarging the pattern in our previous hack, but I'll go over it quickly again. So by now you would have already saved the file to your computer, so all you need to do is go down and open that up. I've got it opening up straight away onto it because I've been playing around with it this morning, but you'll just have to find where you've added that to your computer. Then you're just going to double click on that and it'll open up. Okay, so I've got my Adobe Reader here and you can see there it's all just popped up pretty much quickly and instantly. Then I'm just going to go over, you can either go to File or you can go to the little printer icon here. It does exactly the same thing. You just want to click on that and then this little box will open up. Now we need to change a few things to make sure that it's going to print at the proper size. So today we want to make sure that it's going to be printing at 130%. So I click my grayscale because we want to save some ink. Then I'm going to come down here to poster and I'm going to click that. Now you would have seen that a few things just changed. So if it's just at normal size, you will have fit, actual size, shrink to oversized pages, etc. But we want to go to poster and then you've got here it says tile scale. Now we want to change this to 130. And we just want to leave the overlap as it is. And what the overlap is, it gives us a little bit of a margin so we can glue the pieces together or tape the pieces together. I want to add my cut marks, and I'm not too sure whether I covered that in the last one, but if I take that out, you can see that it sort of changes a little bit. So it'll add a mark there for you to cut out. Alrighty, and we want to have it into portrait, and that is all we need to do. So, and then we just print, and it'll print out, and then we will, my printer sometimes takes a little while for it to print out. We can print that out and then we can tape those together. Now today I'm not going to show you how to tape them all together or anything like that. You can hear my printers printing in the background. That's how quick and easy it is. The reason I'm not going to show you is because you can find all that information in hack 3. I will say one thing though, anything that is written on here, so the 6-inch finish and the wide and the 3/4 and all that sort of stuff that you can see on the screen now is out the window. You don't need that anymore. And in hack 3 I cover the sizes that you need, and then today I will also be covering some sizes that of different measurements that you're going to need for the card slots and also for the wristlet and all that sort of stuff. Alright, so let's head over to the cutting board and the sewing machine and we can get started on our accordion pouch. Okay, so you're going to need a fair bit of stuff today, okay, because we are really putting some bells and whistles on this little accordion pouch now. Okay, so you've already gone over to your computer, you've already printed off your templates. Now if you need to know how to put them together, I'll link up down below where you can find the video of how I show you to do that step by step. You also need to transfer all the information that needs to go onto the template. So you can see here, just as a reminder, I put how much the percentage is and what my cut list is and where to place it on the fold as well. So you need to have these templates because we do need these markings to do the final assembly, and it makes it super easy for you. Okay, so once you've got all that done, then you need to cut out your fabric. So you're going to need one lining and one exterior for the shape of the bag. Then for the pockets, because we're putting a double zip in, you actually need to cut 2 of your exterior fabric and 2 of your lining, and they measure. You're going to cut some, so that was for the zipper pockets, so we can set them aside. And you're also going to need some zipper tabs as well, so you need to cut enough zipper tabs, so you need 4 of those for the 2 zips. And I just used the lining fabric just to make it nice and easy. Then you're going to need to cut some extra stuff for this one. So we are going to show you how to make a wristlet strap and an anchor point, and also a crossbody strap or a shoulder strap, or whichever you want to call that, and also how to put card slots into it. So we'll start with the wristlet. The first thing that you're going to need is a strip that is 2 inches by 15 inches. And I will link up all this down below where all your measurements and everything for you. So if you miss something while I'm talking, it'll all be underneath the video. So that's 2 inches by 15 inches, and you need to cut the appropriate interfacing for that as well. Then your shoulder strap, you're also going to need to cut a 2 inch by 50 inch for my height, and I'm 5'4", but you might want to measure that. So if you're a little bit taller and you like your bag sitting on your hip, you probably want to cut it at 55 inches. So just measure yourself of exactly where you want your bag to sit. So I generally just put the tape measure on my hip and then run it up over my shoulder, and then stop it where I've got the start of it beginning, and then that's the measurement I usually go for. And I find that 50 inches for 5 foot 4 inches tall is a great, it just sits on my hip and it's quite nice. And that also accounts for adding the hardware on and all that sort of stuff as well. You're also going to need an anchor point for our wrist strap and also our shoulder strap, and this is, I've already started playing around with it because it is quite fiddly and I didn't want to take up too much time on camera. This is 1 inch by 8 inches, and basically all you're going to do is fold that in half to create a crease, and then you're going to bring your raw edges in, and I'll show you how all my tips that I do for that to make it super easy. Then you're also going to have to cut a piece of fabric that is 7.5 inches wide, and it is 15 inches in length, and then we have some marks to do on the back to fold up to make our accordion style card slot. So you can see there one that I've prepped a bit earlier just to show you what it's going to look like. The reason I'm doing it this way is because that reduces some of the bulk in the side seams of the where we sew them in. There are various different ways to do this. I am just taking the accordion way because I find that quick and easy to do. And it may be one that you've not done before, so you need to cut a piece of fabric for that, and you also need to put your interfacing on that as well. You're also going to need some hardware today, so you can see here I've got quite a few little bits and pieces. So for our anchor strap, we are going to need a couple of D-rings, so I'm just using flat D-rings today, and they are 12 millimeters, and the 12 millimeter gap is this part here. Okay, so not the overall size of it, you want it where the anchor strap's going to go through. And then we're going to need, for our wristlet and our shoulder strap, we're also going to need some swivel lobster clasps. These again are available on our website, and they are 12 millimeters as well. And last time we added a magnetic strap, and this time we are going to be adding a twist lock. So I'm going to show you how to install a twist lock into this one. You're also going to need a small piece of scrap Peltex to help with the installation of the twist lock, so you need to have a little piece of that. You're also going to need some double cap rivets for the final assembly, a tailor's awl to help poke the holes through. So you can see here I've got mine concealed in that one. I'll link up down below the Facebook page that I got this from, so you can get one of those for yourself if you want. I'm not affiliated with them at all, it's just a great tool to have. So you'll need one of those to install these. Alternatively, you can get these leather punches, and I've got them listed over on kit.com, where you can get those and all my favorite tools. You're also going, which is off camera, you probably can't see it right now, but you're also going to need a rivet press, which makes life just that little bit easier. And if you don't have one of those, you will need a rivet setting tool. You're also going to need some basted glue for the little tip that I've got. You're also going to need your general sewing supplies, so wonder clips, rulers, scissors, rotary cutter, pins, your clapper, iron, and a working sewing machine. And the all important thing that we need is our ultimate glue. This is my favorite glue to use for these purses. It makes it super quick. It gives you extra support and security for your bag, especially when we're adding all these bells and whistles and you're going to have a strap and it could get pulled on and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, just make sure that you've got some of that glue. I've got an Amazon link down below where you can get that. I'm currently out of stock for those here in Australia, but I will be getting some in, and if you want me to put some aside for you, send me a message to askme.dds@gmail.com and I can put you on the wait list for that. It's just on back order at the moment, so yeah, we definitely need to use some of that. Okay, so we've set all our stuff out of the way. The first thing that you want to do is fuse all your fusible fleece and your interfacing onto all the appropriate pieces of fabric. I've done that off camera and I've cut everything out off camera because it just saves a whole ton of time. If you want to know exactly how to do things, then I suggest you go back to the first video, and there is a playlist that I'm going to link up down below for you where you'll find all these videos in one place and you can watch them from start to finish. Okay, so this is actually going to be somewhat of a lengthy video, so grab yourself a cuppa, a notepad and a pen, and you can take notes as we're going through. Alternatively, you can just sew along with me. So get all your stuff prepared. I am actually going to do something a little bit different that I haven't done in the other ones, and this has been a request from someone because they've got some velvet and they want to know how to stabilize it a little bit better. So in last week's Finish It Friday, I sort of covered some of the bases, but I said that I would actually show you how to do this. So all you're going to do is cut out your fabric, and you're going to put your interfacings onto your exterior fabric. I'm just using Fusible Fleece on mine, but if you're using a stretchy fabric or you're using a velvet or something along those lines, I would suggest that you put a piece of Shapeflex 101 first and then put your Fusible Fleece on top of that. That'll give it a little bit more stability. But now what we're going to do, we're actually going to quilt this. So that's going to firm it up a little bit more and give it a little bit more structure. And all I do for that is I just grab my ruler that I've got here. This is just 1 inch wide, and I make it super easy for myself, and I just start over here at the edge and I just make all the lines going one way, and then I go back the opposite way, and I just use a chalk or a friction pen or something along those lines. There is a little bit of controversy about the friction pens, that they leave ghost lines and all that sort of stuff. I actually haven't had that issue in the past, and I only use green, a pale blue and a pink, and I don't seem to have that issue at all. So I've got my chalk pen here, and as I said, all I do is I just pop my ruler down. I sort of eyeball it to make sure it's straight, and then all I'm going to do is mark those lines out and just move the ruler along. It's 1 inch wide, so I don't have to worry about it. I just line the ruler up onto the next line and then mark it. And I'm hoping that you can actually see that coming up on camera, because it is yellow and there is a lot of green in this and it's not picking up. Now if you find that your ruler's a little bit too short, like you just seen me do then, when I'm getting to the middle, I just slide my ruler down and then I can keep moving the chalk pen across. Now I'm thinking I'm going to use a grey thread on the quilting for this one today, because that's going to blend with my background, and that's what you sort of want to do. Alright, so now I've done that way, I'm going to go back the opposite way. So I'll just turn it and have them going back the opposite way and start making my marks. And this will just create like a cross hatch situation of quilting. Okay, so I've got to the end, and if I bring that up, you can see there the cross hatching. Like if I was to use a yellow thread, that wouldn't actually look too bad at all. But as I said, I'm going to use a grey one today. But you can see there, it just gives you that diamond shape to it, and it's going to add a little bit more stability, especially if you're using things like velvet. That was the question that was asked. Okay, so basically all I've done is I've set up my machine, and I've also changed my thread color, and I've also changed my needle. Because I am going to be going through a bit of bulk today, I want to have a new needle, and generally when I'm doing any sort of bag making or anything like that, I always change the needle before I start a new project. And starting in the middle, is where I'm going to start my quilting. And basically what I want to do is I want to just take my stitch length up to a 3.0. Now, depending on your machine, you might have to go up to maybe a 3.5 or anything like that. So you will just want to do a little test patch. And generally what I do is I cut a 5-inch square. I put the same fabric that I'm using, and I also put the same amount of interfacings on it, and then I just cross hatch it or do straight line quilting. And that will give me a really good idea of what my machine can handle. So just do a test patch, and then you can always keep that test patch to know that if you're going through quilting cotton and one piece of fusible fleece, it'll give you a much better idea of how your machine's going to react. All right, so all I do is now just start, and I just start stitching, and I will follow all of those lines to the end. You can cut your threads if you want, or you can just travel down. With something that's got curves, I tend to just cut my threads to make it nice and easy for me, and then I just spin it around and I come back the other way. And I just follow those lines, and those lines are a guide, so if you get a little bit wobbly or you're just on the other side of it, don't stress too much, especially if it's the first time you've ever done something like this. Just get the feel of it. Just make sure that you're understanding how your machine is working and that it's stitching correctly, and that your needle's threaded every time you start, that you're not getting bird's nests or anything like that. And I don't worry about putting a backing or anything on it, because this is going to be concealed, so I don't need to add extra bulk to the purse if I don't need to. So I'm just quilting it through, and you can see on the back there that it's got no backing. And then I just keep continuing doing that across the whole piece until it's finished. Okay, so that's all finished now, and now we can go on to assembling the rest of the pouch. Okay, so we've done all that, and now we're getting ready to start putting some of the hardware in. The first part of the hardware that we need to put in before we can put our lining on is our little twist lock. So you need the washer that goes onto the back of it, you need the piece of Peltex, and you need the actual twist lock. So what I do is I fold it in half like so, and then I just get my little ruler and I come up from the edge about 2 inches and make a mark. So whether that's with your friction pen or with your chalk, and because I'm using dark fabric, I'm going to use my chalk, and I'm just going to make a mark there and a mark there. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to grab your little washer, and you're just going to place that where that mark is. And then all you're going to do is you're going to get your pen, and you're going to just center the washer onto that mark, and just making sure that it is 2 inches up. Yeah, it is. And double check that you've got it in the center, which I do. Okay, and then I can just pop this on to that mark. And then I just do mark where those little cut marks are in there, and I know that they're the little slots that I've got to make for the prongs of this to go through. So I usually just grab my quick unpick and a couple of pins, and then I just place the pin at the top of that mark, so I won't go past that mark. That'll stop my quick unpick from slipping. So just weave that through so it's across both of your marks, and now I can just get my quick unpick and I can pop that in and just do a little slice up. And I'm not going to go past that pin because you could accidentally go up the whole way, and you don't want that. So I can remove the pin now, and now I can place my prongs in there like so. Then I'm going to flip it over. This is where my little piece of Peltex comes in handy, and I cut about 1 inch in size, and I can see that that's going to be fine. And then I just line it up against it, put a mark, and then just make some little snips into that so it slides over those little prongs. Pop that in there like so. Then we grab our little washer and pop it over. And then I like to fold my prongs out, and I give them a really good press. They're really easy to do, but I just, sorry about the wobbling camera there. I just give it a really good press so they're nice and flat. And that's it. Our little twist lock is installed. The bottom part of it is anyway. Now what you're going to do is you're going to grab your lining piece. You can set that aside now. And you're going to fold it up like we have in the last videos. And you're going to find your center spot. And then you're just going to mark a line. So you can see here that I've just marked the line, and then I've got a spot here and a spot there that I've marked, and they're the cut spots that I'm going to start it off with. And then I'm just going to cut along that line. Alright, next what we're going to do is we're going to sew these two pieces together. So again, you're going to align those raw edges up, and you're going to either pin or clip into place, and then you're going to stitch all the way around. Okay, so we've pinned that all into place, and if you find that your lining's slightly bigger, that's okay. Just flip it over and stitch from this side, because we've just quilted that, so it may have pulled it in a little bit. So just basically stitch all the way around. Okay, so you can see here that I've just stitched that down. You can cut off your threads and remove your pins, and then we are ready to turn it right way out. Okay, so we've removed our pins, we've stitched that all down using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the bulk out of the seam, and we're going to clip into our corners so we get a nice, when it turns out, we get a nice finish up near our closure. Alright, so just grabbing your pinking shears, or you can cut little V's if you want to, and just pink around the curves. Alright, so we've got all the way around. You can set those aside, and I just like to just snip into the corner just here, just give it that little bit of extra flexibility to turn through. Then I'm just going to pop my hand in, go up to the closure part, and then just turn it out. Now you're going to, after you've turned it out, you're going to give it a really good press. Okay, so we're going to head over to the sewing machine, and we're going to use an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to elongate our stitches to a 3.0, and then we're going to do an 1/8 of an inch seam all the way around to top stitch it. Okay, so that is now all top stitched in place, so we can just set that aside for a moment, and we're going to make some of our other components that is going to go into that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make our anchor strap, and that goes onto the lining of the flap of the closure. So basically all you want to do is cut a 1 inch strip, put some interfacing on it, and it is going to be 8 inches in length and 1 inch in width. Then you're going to grab your iron, and you're going to fold that in half. Okay, so your raw edges are touching to create a center crease, so just like so. Give that a press, and then you're going to bring those raw edges into that center crease. Now I've done that off camera because it is a little bit tricky to do, and then you want to give that a really good press. Now because you're working with a small piece, it is going to want to pop open, and this is where the Roxanne's glue comes in handy. So I usually just put a couple of drops once I've done the creasing and everything is in place. I will just put a couple of drops underneath each side, or I'll just run a small bead along, not too much, and then I will just close that off, and then that will stay together when it comes time to popping it onto the lining. So now what you're going to do, now that you've done that, what you will do is head over to the sewing machine, and you're going to stitch an 1/8 of an inch all the way down on both sides, so down this side and down this side. Okay, so that is done. Now what you're going to do is you're going to fold that in half and just grabbing your pin, find your center point, and then what you're going to do is you're going to bring these raw edges into the center here, just like so. Okay, and you make like a little bow type looking thing. Okay, so what you're going to do now is, once that is, you've found the center, I usually just grab a wonder clip and pop that on there to hold it in place, and then I will give that a really good press so I know where those crease marks are going to be, those little loops. Okay, use your clapper if you need to. Just makes it easier for when we unfold and refold it up. So then you're going to grab your little D-rings and you're going to slip them on, just like so, and take them up to where that crease mark is, and repeat for the other side. Making sure that your little raw edges stay into the center. Okay, so that's what it'll end up looking like. So you'll have the two D-rings on each end, and this is so you can put your wristlet on either side, or you can use a shoulder strap. So what I do now is I just grab some of my basic glue and I just put a little dot there and a little dot on the other side, and then I just pop that into place, and then I'll hit that with the iron and that will dry it. And I know that it's not going to come undone, and I can set that aside. Alright, so that's all ready to go. So I'll set that aside, and the next thing that we're going to make is our wristlet strap. So again, you're going to grab your fabric, you're going to fold it with the pretty sides facing out to create a crease down the length of your wristlet. You'll open that back up, and then you'll bring those raw edges in. Again, at this point I like to just put a couple of drops of the basic glue along, and that's just going to help me to hold that in place. Now don't go all the way to the end with the basic glue, because we do have to make this into a loop in just a second. So again, bringing that raw edge in. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into, we're going to bring the ends up and we're going to turn it into a circle. But before we do that, we need to put our little lobster clasp on. Doesn't have to be secured in place or anything just yet. I put that lobster clasp to the middle, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my right sides together, and I'm going to open that back up again. So that's why I didn't have the glue going all the way to the end. And I'm going to line my raw edges up, and I'm going to pop a couple of pins in, and it's probably easier to do that where those creases are. It'll hold a little bit better for you. So 3 pins all up, 1 in the center and then on the 2 side creases. And then you're going to head to the sewing machine and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so just straight along there. Okay, so you can see there I've sewn a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to get rid of those pins and then basically just pop that closed again. If you find that it's a little bit bulky, just press that seam open and it will just fold in on itself again. Okay, and then grab your iron and give it a really good press. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it over on itself. And I like to use either the glue or the wonder clips at this point just to hold it in place, making sure that it's not twisted or anything like that. Okay, so once you've got your wonder clips on there, you're going to head over to the sewing machine and you're basically going to sit it underneath your presser foot, and you're going to do 1/8 of an inch all the way around, and then you're going to do the other side as well. Okay, so we've done that. We've top stitched all the way around, and now what you're going to do is you're going to slide your little lobster clasp up to where that join was, where we closed it into a circle. And I like to get a wonder clip at this point and just pop that on there to hold my lobster clasp in place. And then what I do as a little decorative accent, I like to just pop a little rivet in there. So getting that up as close as you possibly can, and just popping that wonder clip on there, and that's going to hold them in place. So it's a nice little wristlet you can see there. Then I'm going to either grab my tailor's awl or my leather punch, and then I'm just going to grab myself a rivet set. So that's comprises of 2 pieces. So you've got a cap with a stem, and then you've just got a cap. And then I just sort of eyeball where I want it to go, but I want it to get as close as I can to that bar that's gone through there. And then I just, with this tool here, I just push it up as close as I can. You can see there to where the wonder clip is lining up with the bar. So I push it up to that, and then in the center, and I can see here there's a hole, so I can see and gauge where the center is, and that looks to be about right. And then I just squeeze, and that makes the hole. Then I'll grab my tailor's awl, and I'll just clear that pathway for the rivet. Then pop the rivet through. So that's through. And then we just put our cap on, and then I just set that aside, and I'll put that into the rivet setter once I'm ready to do the rest of the purse. So push those caps on, make sure that they're secured on there nice and tight, and then you can set that aside. Okay, so next we're going to make our shoulder strap. So you're going to need your last 2 lobster clasps, and you're going to need some rivets. And again, you just do it exactly the same way, except this time we're not completing the circle. We're just going to fold it in half, give it a good press, bring all those raw edges into the center, and then fold it over on itself, and then stitch it down. Now this one, I definitely like to use the glue with this one, because of the simple fact is that it's such a long strip. And you're also, a little bit different is, you want to fold this short end in about 1/4 of an inch and just pop some glue on it, and that just gives us a nice clean finish down the bottom. No raw edges popping out there anywhere. And like you can see there that it actually holds itself down, but as we start fiddling with it, it may come apart a little bit. So just a couple of drops of glue will help secure that in place. And don't forget to do it down the other end as well. So once you found that center crease, then you just bring your raw edges into that center piece, and you can then travel down the rest of the strap. And then when you're ready and you've done the whole strap, you just fold it over on itself again. And again, with this one, because it is so long, I will put a couple of drops of glue, and that will just hold it into place for me. So there you go. So continue that down the length of the strip, and then we'll add our lobster clasps on. Okay, so we've got to the end, and now what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch that down at that open edge closed, and we're going to do that all the way down one side and then all the way down the other side, and then we'll add our lobster clasp. Okay, so that's all done now. So now what you're going to do is you're going to just slide one of your lobster clasps on, and because we've got this nice neat edge and there's no raw edges there, we can just fold it up on itself. I usually go about 1/2 inch to 1 inch, so just like that. And then I'm going to grab my tailor's awl and also my leather hole punch, and I'm going to again get as close as I can to that bar without being hard up against it. And then centering that, I'm going to punch that hole. Then just get my tailor's awl and make sure that that hole is clear of any interfacing or anything like that. Then I'm going to grab one of my rivets and then put a cap on that. And then I just click that on, and then again I'll set that aside until I'm ready. And then I come down the other end, but this time you want to make sure that it's going to the same side. So I've got this facing up, and I want to make sure that there's no twist or anything in my strap. So I will just sit my clapper on that and then run my hand down and know that that's all straight, and then slide on my lobster clasp, and again just coming up, and again I just get my hole punch and get it as close as I can without being hard up against that lobster clasp, and just punch that hole. And all the tailor's awl does is just clear out any fluff or anything that might obstruct the rivet from going through. Alright, so just pop that on, and then you can see that I don't have a twist or anything in my strap, and I'll bring them around and they're both exactly the same. So now I can set that aside, and that's it. That's a shoulder strap. Okay, so that basically what will happen is this will get hooked onto those little D-rings, and that will get attached to the bag, but they can just get set aside now because we don't need to worry about them. And next we're going to move on to the zipper pocket, and we'll set those rivets in place when we're doing the rivets on the outside of the bag. Okay, so we're going to do the pockets. Now you need to do something a little bit different to the pockets. You need to cut these a different size than what's on the template. Okay, so the template actually has that at 6.5 by 10 3/8. You actually want to cut this by 10 1/4 and 7.5 inches wide, and the reason we need to do that is because we're doing a double ended zip and we're going to French seam it, so we need that little bit extra in there, and it'll sit in about 1/4 inch in on either side from where your card slots are. You also don't want to have fusible fleece on this one like we have in the others. You actually just want to have some Shape Flex 101 or any sort of woven interfacing, just to give it a little bit more stability, because we have to get them through and it's got French seams in it, so we have to still get our rivets through, and if we've got our fusible fleece on that, well, that's going to be too thick. Okay, so once you've got all your interfacing on, then you're going to add your zip. So you're going to need some zipper tabs, and you're also going to need 2 zips. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make our zipper pocket, and there's 2 zippers in this pocket. So the last video we only had 1 zipper, and we just had like a little spot that you could put things into, but no extra zips or anything like that. This time we're going to do that same zipper pocket, except this time we're going to have another zipper pocket, so that's going to give you 2 extra pockets into your pouch. Now you're going to need 2 zips for that. Anything bigger than an 8 inch is fine, so these particular ones are 9 inch, so I'll have to cut mine down. You're also going to need a couple of zipper tabs. You're going to need 4 in total, so they measure 1.5 inches by 2, and we're going to use the easy tab method this time. I did do in the last video, I did a different way of doing the tab, so you've got a couple of options there, because not everybody likes the easy tab way, but today we're going to do that. So I haven't worried about putting any interfacing onto the zipper tabs because they are quite small and they don't really need it. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're just going to set your fabrics aside for a second, and we're going to add our zipper tabs on. So all you need to do is, starting up at this end here where you've got the metal stop, we're just going to fold our zipper tab in half and create a crease. And for video purposes, I'm actually going to mark that crease so you can see it, but when you're making it yourself, this step isn't necessary. So basically I've got that mark, and I'm going to do that on all 4 of them. Okay, so what you're going to do now is about 1/4 inch away from that metal stop, you're going to place your zipper tab on like so. And you can just eyeball that, that's fine. Then you're going to open that back up, leaving that sitting in where you've just put it, and you're going to add a couple of pins. And that's just going to secure it in place. Making sure that it's sitting straight. And I just sort of like to line it up with the edge of the zip to make sure that it is straight sometimes, depending how big the zip is. But these small ones, I can usually line it up with the edge. So you can see that that is sitting on there nice and straight. And what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine, and you're going to stitch straight across there. And I like to reverse across here a couple of times just to give it that extra security. And then you just repeat with the following zip. Okay, so you can see there that I've stitched that into place. Now I can remove those pins, and then that just comes straight over like so. And then I like to just grab my pinking shears, and then I'll just trim that up with the edge of the zipper tape. And I repeat for the other side of the other zip as well. Okay, and now I can actually remove that excess zipper tape. So just on this side of the metal stop, I just get rid of that. And that's one end done. So now, to make it nice and easy for myself, I just usually grab my exterior pocket, and then I will just line that zipper tab up onto the edge of the pocket. I will just grab a wonder clip or a pin, so you can see at this end here that I've got a lot of excess tape. So what I do is I grab my zipper tab, fold it in half and mimic the size of it, and place that on like so. So that's how I want my zipper tab to finish up looking. So you can see there that I've got it evenly spaced. And then what I do is I just, leaving it in place, I just make a little mark of where I've got to line that up, and then I just double check it, and that's sitting there quite nicely. So now I'm comfortable enough to know that I can open that up, remove the wonder clip, and on one side only pop a pin. Okay, and then I'm just going to move that out of the way because I know that that's not going to move. I'm going to move the zipper pull out of the way, and then I can continue pinning my zip. And I grab the other pin for the other side. And then I repeat for the other zipper. Right. And so again, I just line that up, and I know that that's going to be even, and then I just make the mark there and there. Remove the wonder clip, pop the pin into the one side, and then pull the zipper pull back. Now I can see that it's all sitting there fine, and if you're having some issues with your zipper coming apart, you can actually just head over to the sewing machine and put a couple of tack stitches there, and that'll stop that from happening. But once it's pretty much pinned in place, you're pretty right to go. Okay, so we've got that done. Now we can remove our pins, and before we cut off the zipper tape, I always like to double check. Okay, so I'll just grab my pressing tool, or you can use your iron, it's up to you. Okay, so I'm just going to lay those on, making sure that they're even, and I can see there that they are definitely lining up with the pocket, so I'm safe to cut off that excess tape. And I just cut about 1/4 inch away from where I sewed. Okay, and then I'll trim up with the pinking shears, and that's our zippers done. Okay, so you've got 2 exterior fabrics with inner facing, and you've got 2 lining with inner facing, and you also have your 2 zips to match your fabric. So basically all we're going to do now is like when you make any other pouch, we're going to assemble our zip in there. So just set 1 exterior and 1 lining aside, grab your zipper and with the zipper teeth facing down, you're going to align up your raw edge with your zipper tape. And I just usually put a couple of pins in for this, not too many, and then you're going to put your zipper foot onto your machine and you're going to stitch it into place. Then what you're going to do is you're going to grab your lining, and again you're going to align the raw edges of your fabric up with the tape and the exterior fabric. And then we'll head over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. Okay, so that's stitched in, and now what we do is flip that over, give that a really good press, and then grab your other exterior fabric and place it right sides down, aligning with the zipper tape. Again, pop some pins in, making sure that your raw edge of your fabric is lining with the edge of the tape. Then flip that over, grab your other lining fabric and line that up as well. Then head over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. Okay, so that's that one in, and there you go. We've got our first zipper in. Now this next bit is a little bit tricky, but if you just follow along and pause and take notes, you'll be fine. Okay, especially if you've never done it before, something like this before, it can be a little bit tricky. So giving that a really good press, making sure that everything is sitting nice and flat. Okay, so we've pressed that into place, and you've basically got 2 exterior fabrics and you've got 2 lining fabrics. So what you want to do is you want to bring one of these lining fabrics down, then flip it back over, so you're just working with the exterior fabric up the top. Now slide it down a bit so you can reach, and then grab your second zip, and you're going to place that with the teeth facing down, and you're going to pin that into place onto the exterior fabric. Now with the same orientation, just slide that away from yourself, and what you're left with down here, you've got an exterior fabric, then you've got a lining fabric which has got the right side facing down, and then you've got a lining fabric which is facing up to you. These 2 top ones, what you want to do with those is you just want to roll them up to the zipper so they're out of the way, and then you want to slide it back down to yourself. So you've just left this lining, the bottom lining which was facing up, exposed, and what you're going to do is you're going to bring that up and you're going to line up with your zipper and your exterior up the top, and then you're just going to pin that into place, and you're going to head over to the sewing machine and you're going to stitch that into place. Now don't worry about opening your zips or anything like that, because the sides are still open, so we don't need to stress about that. So head over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. Okay, so that's stitched in place. You can take your pins out, and what you're going to do is you're just going to turn that out. Okay, and you can see there that your zipper is in place and your lining is going the right way. And now what we're going to do is the other side. So give that a bit of a press first before we do that. Make sure that our lining is out of the way. Now with your pocket orientated this way I've got it now, what you're going to do is you are going to bring up your exterior fabric at the bottom, and you're going to line that up with the zipper tape up the top. Just making sure that all your raw edge of your fabric is lining up with the raw edge of the zipper tape. Okay, so we've got that pinned in place, and we've still got this lining fabric. So if you just flip it over, then what you're going to do is you're going to bring that lining fabric up and line that up with the zipper tape again and pin into place, and then head over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. Okay, so that's now stitched into place. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to reach into your exterior fabric and you're going to turn that right way out, and there we go. We have 2 zippers attached in to our little pouch, so one at one end and one at the other. So now what you're going to do is you're going to give it a really good press, and then we're going to start the process of French seaming it and evening it all up. Okay, so that's all pressed and right to go. So now what you're going to do, you can see here that we've had a little bit of movement, so I just want to clean that edge up before I stitch down the side. So just grab my ruler, place that on there, and just get rid of some of that scraggly stuff, and spin it around and do the same thing for the other side. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to head to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch an 1/8 of an inch seam all the way down. But at this point you actually want to open up your zippers. Okay, so you've stitched down an 1/8 of an inch down each side. So now what you're going to do is you're going to reach in and pull that out. So your lining fabric is facing out, and you're going to poke your zips out. The tabs, make sure all your corners are out and everything like that. Just like so. And then you're going to give that a really good press. Making sure that you run your purple thing or whatever you use to poke out your seams, you're going to run that along your seams so you get it all nice and flat. Alright, so get rid of all your excess threads so they don't get caught up in your zip. And now we're ready to French seam that. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to catch all of that raw edge on the inside. So we're just, that's an 1/8 of an inch, and if I run my finger along there you can see where the seam is. So I just have to sew 1/4 of an inch all the way down, and that's going to capture all that raw edge in there, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. And so once that's done, we can turn that back out, and then we can set that aside and move on to the next component of our bag. Okay, so that's done. So now what we can do is just turn that back through, and that is our double zipper pocket done. So set that aside after giving it a really good press, and then we can move on to the next component of the bag. Okay, so there we go, our little zipper pockets are done. So as I said, set them aside. And all right, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to make our pockets. So you can see here, these ones I prepared a little bit earlier, and they're just an accordion pocket, and a little card will sit in there quite nicely. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to get yourself a piece of fabric, and then there's some marks that you need to mark on it. And I've done that off camera, so I'm just going to make it nice and easy for you. I grab a ruler, and then you come down 2.5 inches from the first edge, and this is 7.5 by 15. So you just grab your marking device, whether that be a friction pen or a chalk. I actually use an ink pen that doesn't iron off a permanent marker, because I'm going to press it and then the friction one will go away. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to line the 2.5 edge mark, 2.5 inch ruler mark to the edge of your fabric, and you're going to draw a line. So that's 2.5 inches. Then the next mark you're going to line up is your 1 3/4 inch mark on that line that you just marked, and then you're going to place a line. So 1 3/4. Then you'll move it to the 2 1/4 and draw that line. Then 1 3/4 again and draw that line. Then 2 1/4, and then 1 3/4. So 2.5, 1 3/4, 2 1/4, 1 3/4, 2 1/4, 1 3/4. Alrighty, so now to make it, we need to make the creases for that. So grabbing our, I'll just get rid of my ruler, grabbing our ironing pad. So you can see here on the back, I'll show you. So this one's already been done off camera. So you can see on the back, the crease marks that are going up are going to be our 1 3/4 marks, and the ones that'll be underneath that you can't see are our 2.5 and 2 1/4 ones. You're going to lay with the fabric right side up, and then you're going to bring over your fabric to that 2.5 inch mark. Okay, so that's our first mark. So you want the 2.5 inch one facing away from you, and you want to give that a press. You can use your clapper at this point as well. That gives you a nice crease. Okay, the next mark that we want is the 1 3/4, and that is going to come up on top. So we bring that up so it sits like so, okay? And you may have to bring your fabric away from you, like just flick it away. And so there's our 2.5 inch mark that we done. So this one is getting folded, so our 1 3/4, and you might need to sit a ruler or a piece of Perspex plastic or something along those lines just to bring it across, okay? And that just helps to guide it a little bit. And it's a little bit tricky and takes a little bit to get used to, but if you just sit there and have a bit of a play with it, you'll get the hang of it. All right, and then we're going to press that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop a pin in there so it doesn't move on me. So once you've pinned that in place, what you're going to do is you're going to flip it over so you can see your measurements again. So as you've seen on this one, our 2.5, 2 1/4, and the 2 1/4 are folding down. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip. So we've got our fabric like so, and we're going to take that longer piece up, and then we're going to fold down onto that line to create our crease. Okay, so we've set that crease in place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn that around and flip that back over. So did you see that? I turned it, I've creased it, and I'm going to turn it around so it's away from me and flip my fabric over so it's right sides facing up. The next, so that is the bottom of our card pocket. So the next one we want to find is the next line down, which is the 1 3/4, and I just grab it from each side, and then I'm going to bring that up and lay it on the previous one. Okay, so my 1 3/4 mark is just on the inside here and on this side, and then I'm going to bring that up to there. Okay, and I just double check that I'm on the line, and you can just roll it and you can see there that it's just made another crease. So I'll give that a press again, and then I'll just grab a couple of pins and pop that into place, and then I know that that's not going to move on me. So we've got to make another pocket. So I just flip that over until I find my 2 1/4. Okay, and then I just roll it down to that line and give it a press. Use your clapper if you need to. If you don't have one, there'll be a link down below where you can get one. They're brilliant for this sort of thing. All right, so now I'm going to turn that, and I'm going to flick the fabric away from me, and then I'm going to find my last line, which is a 1 3/4 on either side, and I'm just going to pinch that, and I'm going to bring that up. Okay, making sure that I'm actually on the line, and this one's a little bit easier because you don't have a lot of fabric in the way. And then I will give that a press. Now what I like to do is just, before I pin that into place, I'll do a couple of measurements. So each of these pockets, so you can see here, there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. I like these here to be 1/2 inch, okay, and so I may have to adjust it. So I just get my ruler and place that on there, and I can see that this middle one just needs to be moved down at this end a little bit. It's just where I've pinned it, I've not pinned it in the right place. And the top piece is at 3/4 of an inch, and I just adjust it accordingly, and then I can pin that first one into place, so that's all good. Then I'll place the ruler onto that pocket, and I can see that the edge of the second pocket is lining up, and it's 1/2 inch from there, and so I can pin that into place. And I always put just one pin in and then double check. And then on the second pocket, place it on the folded edge, and I can see that that is sitting just beautifully there at 1/2 inch. So I'll grab a pin and pop that in there as well. Okay, so now that they're all in place, what we want to do is we actually want to top stitch these pockets. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to basically take one pin at a time, starting from the bottom, and I'm just going to run that in at 1/8 inch, and I move the other pocket away from it because we don't want to stitch them down. So to show you what I mean is I'll remove these pins, and then I will move the pocket out of the way so you can see there's no other pocket there, and then I'll top stitch that. And then for the next one, I'll just pull that out and do the same thing. Okay, so you can see there that I've top stitched them and they're not anchored down or anything like that at this point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place my pins back into that, and then I'm going to head over to the sewing machine, and I am going to stitch 1/8 inch all the way down each side. Okay, and then what you'll do is we'll repeat that with the other one, and then we need to do a little bit of cutting. Okay, so that is our little card pocket done. We're not ready to do the centerpiece yet, so basically what you're going to do is you're going to set that one aside, and you're going to repeat it for the second one, and then we need to cut it to the correct size. Okay, so we've got both our card slots, and now what we need to do is we need to just make some measurements to make sure that we've got the right size. And what we do is we just lay our card slot like so, and then we want to take our top edge and place that on the 5.5 inch mark, and just trim off any of that little bit of excess. Okay, so we've got a nice straight edge. Okay, and then we're going to do the same with our other one. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to take your card slots, so these are, the pockets are facing this way, so you can put something in that way, and you're going to spin them. So one lot of the pockets are coming in, you can put the stuff in from the right hand side and the other one from the left hand side. You're going to lay them right sides together, and you are going to pin them into place. And then you're going to head to the sewing machine, and you're going to stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance. Don't forget to reverse and at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so that is now stitched together, so you can just open that up and give that a really good press. Okay, so once that's pressed in place, you're now going to measure your whole piece, and it should measure around about 10 inches. Then you can use either lining fabric or your exterior fabric, that's entirely up to you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to place that right sides together, and you're going to sew across the short edges. So to remind myself not to sew all the way around, I just pin on the sides that I have to sew. And you're going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we've sewn that, and you can remove your pins now. And all you're going to do is you're just going to turn that right sides out, and then you'll just roll those seams over, and you'll give it a really good press, and then top stitch that down. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to grab our ruler, and we need to mark our center line. So our piece measures 7.5. Just double check that all the way down. So we want a measurement of 3 3/4. And before I even sew this into place, I just use my chalk to draw the line and make sure that my card fits in it. So I can see there that my cards are going to fit in there nicely without a problem. So I'm pretty safe to stitch that down. Now I like to just basically stitch straight down the center, and I start at one end and go all the way the other, and I just do a little bit of a back stitch at the beginning at the end. Okay, so I've sewn that line now, and I know that my cards fit in there because I tested it. And now what I'm going to do is do a top stitch along this edge here, and just using 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that is now our card slots complete and finished, so we can set them aside. And now we are getting to the nitty-gritty of the bag, and that is the assembly. Okay, so now we're up to the final assembly of the bag. So far we have done the quilting for the outside. We have added the lining onto it and put the twist, bottom part of the twist lock in. We have made our double zipper pockets. We've also made our credit card slots. we've made our wristlet, we've also made a shoulder strap for it, and we've also made our anchor point. Alright, so set your bits and pieces aside and get your main part of your bag. And what you're going to do now is you are going to add the second part of the twist lock. So that is going to go into the flap. So you want to turn your piece around. And basically what's going to happen is you're going to come up and put it about 1/2 inch up from your top stitching. So to do that, all I do is I just fold that over, and you can see there that that is going to be, that crease is going to be lining up with the bottom part of the twist lock that we put in. I grab a pin and I just put that in there just as a reminder of the center point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ruler and I'm going to come up about 1/2 inch from my top stitching. And I just put a mark on the ruler lining it up with that pin. I know that that is the halfway point, and all I'm going to do is just make a little mark with the chalk going up and down to make a cross point. And then I will get the flat part of the washer, which is to secure this into place basically, and then I just lay that over the top, and then I will grab a pen or the chalk, whatever's easiest for me, and I will just color that bit in because I know that bit has to be cut out. So you can see there that I've just colored that in, and then what I'll do is just grab my scissors. You can get hole punches like fabric punches and lever punches to do this, but I just use my scissors. And then I cut out all the way through all that coloured in spot, and then I just double check to make sure, so you can see there that I haven't cut away all the fabric. So I just keep doing that until it's gone. Just using the tips of my scissors is probably the easiest way to do that. If you've got some really sharp embroidery scissors, they usually go through the thickness okay as well. Just a little bit more, a little bit tedious. Then pop that over. And that's pretty much good to go. Probably just a little bit more out of this corner. Okay, so to stop it from fraying, I just usually put a little bit of fray check on that. You can use a little bit of Elmer's glue, clear glue or anything like that, or the basic glue, that'll do the same thing. Okay, put a little bit of fray check on, and then get the top part, which has got the little prongs on it, and put that onto the exterior of the fabric. So that's the prong bit. And then we get our washer piece and place that onto the back, making sure it's all secure, and then have it a little bit loose to begin with, just in case I need to move it. And I can see that that's sitting nice and straight, and then I just squeeze that together, and that is it. Our little twist lock is securely in place. Okay, so basically what I do now is I assemble the rest of the bag. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put our anchor point on, and to make it nice and easy for me, I just grab the ruler and I place that just where my closure ends, and I just sit that there, and then I place this on top. Now I know that this under here is my center point, and I can line that up with the clasp there, and then I can just pop that into place. And then what I'll do is I'll just grab my basting glue and I'll just put a couple of drops on it underneath, and then I'll hit that with the iron, and I know that that's not going to move on me, and then I can just adjust it if I need to, because it's not permanently in place. Now what I'm going to do is head over to the sewing machine, and I'm basically going to, on the same line that I've already got stitched there, I'm going to stitch down this long edge, across, down this long edge, and then across, and then that'll be anchored into place. Okay, so that's now in place, and that's not going to go anywhere. You can pop your little wristlet onto that, your wrist strap, and you're good to go. So, or your shoulder strap or anything like that. So that's all secured in place. So next we're going to take our card slots, and we are going to, now at this point I do like to trim these up just a little bit to get rid of the scraggly edges. It just makes it easy to sew. So I just trim those up, and same with the other side. Okay, so you're going to take the outer of your bag, and you're going to grab your card slots, and you're going to pop them down there. You're just going to line them up, And then what you're going to do is you're going to roll this over and grab some Wonder Clips, and the same with this side. And you want to make sure that it's really secure over the top of your card slot. And now what you're going to do is you're going to head over to the sewing machine and you're going to stitch this into place using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we've put that into place. Okay, so we've got our pockets and we're ready to assemble them into our accordion pouch. And as you can see, I've got the cards in there, so that's all working fine and they're easy to get in and out. So basically what I want to do is I actually want to make this center part in here, where the pockets sit, a little bit deeper, so you could add, you know, your lipstick or something like that to it. So basically I've got the cards in there just so I know where the pockets end, and I'll put one on this side as well, and I can feel where the card ends. So I want to find the center of my double zipper pocket, so I fold that in half and I'll just grab a pin and pop that into the center point and line that up with the seam that we've got here from the card pockets. Okay, and I may have to adjust it just a little bit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw a line across the center, and then I'm going to place my ruler on that line, and just making sure that I'm not going too far up. I'm just going to make another mark, and then I'm going to go a 1/2 inch up from that mark, and I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to do exactly the same things. So I can now draw that line to the edge, that top line. So from our center line we are going to mark up 1.5 and 1.5. So you've got your center line, and then you're going to mark up this way 1.5 and this way 1.5, and that's going to give us a 3-inch box. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch that box there. Okay, so that's all sewn in, and now we can start assembling the last pieces of it. So again, we just bring it up to where we've got our marks. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the placement of how that's going to be. It's given me a nice deep pocket in here so I can put some lipstick or stuff like that in. So I'm pretty happy with how everything's going. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ultimate glue. So I'm going to put in the crease, I'm going to put some ultimate glue, and then just get my Wonder Clip and clip that on there, and then the same for the other side. And then the last side. Okay, so the next thing that you want to do is we want to put the rivets in it. So you grab your punch or your tailor's awl, whichever you've got and is easy to use. Then you're going to grab your rivets, you're going to grab a cap and one with a stem, and you're just going to come underneath where the zip is, and you're going to punch a hole in there. And then just use your tailor's awl to go through. Okay, once you've got that through, just pop your cap on. And move on to the next one. So again, just under where you can feel the bulk underneath there is where you want to go. Clip that into place and pop our last one in and the cap on that. Okay, so there we go, we've got our rivets in, and now we can get our rivet press and we can set those all into place. So don't forget that you've also got your straps over here with the rivets in it. So you've got your wristlet and you've got your shoulder strap. So all we do for that is just place it into the groove and we just press that down. And that's done. And then we can add that onto our little bag. Then we can do this one. And the other side. So you'll feel a little click, and then that's all ready to go as well. And then we're just got to do the sides of our bag. So you're just folding it down and popping it into the press. And I have shown this how to use this properly on our last video. And then the next one. And just keep going around until you've done them all. Alright, so that is it. That is all done, and we can set that aside now. So you can see there we've added the wristlet on, we've got some cards in there, we've got a nice little deep pocket, all our sides are glued on, and we've put in a twist lock. And if you don't want to have the wristlet and you want to have the shoulder strap, basically all you do is you take that off and you add this one on. And that's why we've got a clip at both ends, a little D-ring at both ends. So when it closes up, you've got a nice little shoulder strap for it, and you can have it as a crossbody bag or something along those lines, or you can have it as a wristlet, and you can have it on either side for the wristlet as well, whichever side you're comfortable on. And again, you just close that up, and there we go. You've got your nice little wristlet. Slip it over your wrist and you're good to go. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I really do hope that you enjoyed making the super-sized accordion pouch. It's definitely not the humble little accordion pouch anymore. It is now definitely a bag for all occasions. If you liked this video today, give it a thumbs up down below. Leave us a comment, because we always love to hear from you. And share it with your crafty friends across the social medias, because the more we get out there, the more we get seen, and you'll never know, one of your friends might like to make one for themselves as well. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. And for those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reid for Darvanalee Design Studio, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.